and welcome to another episode of Supernatural Success Camp Show. I am your television host, Coach Bond, bringing truth about relationship wars, right, wrong, and what's truth. You know, when we find ourselves in difficulties, conflicts, what have you, in our relationships, as human beings in this life, it can be difficult to know what's the right thing to do, especially when we have characters that are prone to affixing blame to others. I mean, let's face it, no one wants to always be found wrong. And I think that a healthy-minded person understands that we might be wrong some of the time. But what about someone who you have to interact with, whether it's personally, professionally, on the job, or deeper than that, someone who's convinced, even spiritually, that they are right, that they know more, they know better, can do things better than anyone else, and they would always recommend themselves. How do you deal with a personality like that? Well, one of the things that I have learned to do is look at others who have achieved supernatural success in experiencing resolution to the problem. And what I want to say to you today is that sometimes the solution to the problem is just not in you. After you've done all that you can do, as far as it depends on you to achieve peace with the person that you're in conflict with, you can rely on a divine intervention, intervention that is other humanly and above natural laws, natural processes, nature that is human, and also natural predictable outcomes. One particular example that I like to use, picking up from where we were talking last week on our show, we talked about sometimes that the outcome of standing upon the truth that you know, especially when you're believing and affirming that that truth is found in Christ, who declared himself to be the way, the truth, and the life. The way to the Father, the omnipotent, divine, sovereign one. You may find that your significant other, if you will, whoever that person may be in whatever context that you're experiencing conflict with, will not back down, will continue to pursue their position, their point, whatever it is. But when you declare not to be moved, it's interesting how the resistance to personalities that are manipulative, even to the point of being violent if they can't get their way, achieve their will, how divine intervention will bring about a resolution for you. And today I want to give you an example from the Old Testament where you can see exactly how to assess your circumstances, your environment, whether it be in your home, whether it be on the job. One of the first things to know is a principle. And I like to provide you with solutions that are principled. For instance, in talking about these know-it-all personalities, let's consider in any given circle, network, environment, if you observe long enough, usually you can tell those who have personalities or characteristics that help them lead others well. And if you are not able to discern that through observation, sometimes, especially in large groups, you may need to identify who people of authority are based on some sign, maybe some badge badge, some name tag, some pin, some uniforms are definitely used to dress the person for the occasion, so that there will be an instant visual recognition without there having to be an interview or lengthy in-depth dialogue per se. In this case, God had organized a community of his own people and designated and appointed who he wanted to be leaders for them and spiritual guides. And God always gives us good gifts, and so this would have been for the good of the community. And if you've heard it said, verbally or even if you've read in the scriptures, that to whom much is given, much is required, we can hope to rely on the fact that all authorities, and this is also written in the scriptures, all people of authority are instituted by God behind the scenes. Everything is in place. And if those who are in those positions of authority misuse their positions, then the one who put them there sovereignly, by those workings, his workings behind the scene, will hold him to account. You can pray. You have a powerful weapon in prayer, intercessory prayer, that allows you to communicate to the supernatural superior who can help intervene on your behalf, because it's a terrible thing to have to be under leadership, wouldn't you agree, with someone who does not manage their authority well. There's a scripture also written that says the people, when there is wicked rule or people in the positions of authority, the people are groaning under that rule, under that leadership. Why? Because there's usually some character deficiency there. Ego problems, bullying, selfishness, selfish ambitions is a real problem. But it's a perverted position of relating to and remaining harmonious with community. Well, in the book of Numbers in the Old Testament, there was a bit of a situation with a leader who was successful and who was beginning to exalt himself, or he wasn't, I should correct myself and say that he was being perceived as exalting himself. And isn't that interesting, that those who are being successful in their divinely appointed leadership are often accused of having some other selfish or ambitious motive? Well, let's just take a look. If you have access to the scriptures, maybe on your electronic device or your mobile phone or what have you, the passage is titled Korah's Rebellion, and that's Korah'. And I am going to be reading this passage from the book of Numbers, New Living Translation, which says, one day, Korah, son of Izhar, a descendant of Kohath, son of Levi, conspired with Dathan and Abiram, the sons of Eliab, and On, the son of Peleth, from the tribe of Reuben. They incited a rebellion against Moses, along with 250 leaders of the community, who happened to be all prominent members of the assembly, which means these were devotional men, of course. They united, verse 3 says, against Moses and Aaron, and they said, you have gone too far. The whole community of Israel has been set apart by the Lord, and he is with all of us. What right do you have to act as though you are greater than the rest of the Lord's people? Oh boy. Let's note the reaction and the response of this chosen leader of the people. Verse 4 says, when Moses heard what they were saying, he fell face down on the ground. Then he said to Korah and his followers, tomorrow morning the Lord will show us who belongs to him and who is holy. The Lord will allow only those whom he selects to enter his own presence. Korah, you and all of your followers must prepare your incense burners. Light fires in them tomorrow and burn incense before the Lord. Then we will see whom the Lord chooses as his Holy One. Sounds like Prophet Moses was orchestrating a attack. And see, if you've ever heard the proverbial saying, if you don't start none, there won't be none, this is where that would apply. Oh, they started it, and there was going to be some. And the Lord was going to finish it. So let's see. These men prepared an incense burner, lit the fire, placed incense in it, and then they all stood at the entrance of the tabernacle with Moses and Aaron. Meanwhile, Korah had stirred up the entire community against Moses and Aaron, and they all gathered at the tabernacle entrance. And then the glorious presence of the Lord appeared to the whole community. And the Lord said to Moses and Aaron, get away from all these people so that I might instantly destroy them. See, some people who have not read, studied, rightly divided the word of truth, have an imagination about God and his character and his nature. But this is written, the account by Moses himself. Let's go on and see how supernatural invention works on behalf of your success when you believe, when you're appointed, when you're chosen, and you're committed to success that brings glory through your good works, through you finishing the things that you started, running your race well. How it brings glory to the one who's given you a power to do that. So, Moses and Aaron fell face down on the ground. Oh God, they pleaded, you are the one who gives breath to all creatures. Must you be angry with all the people when only one man sinned? The Lord said to Moses, then tell all the people to get away from the tents of Korah, Dathan, and Abiram. See, that shows you the Lord knows exactly where these hecklers, these rabble-rousers are camping at. He knows right where they live. When you have heard that saying, vengeance is mine, saith the Lord, you can believe in it. He knows exactly where you are. He knows exactly what's going on. We don't have to internalize and end up becoming ill, getting stressed out over the things that other people who are mentally ill, emotionally ill, spiritually ill, and imbalanced do toward us. Just invoke the help, the divine intervention, the perfect will of the Lord in the situation. Stand back. Well, what you have now is Moses got up, verse 25, rushed over to those tents of Dathan and Abiram. He was followed by the elders of Israel. Quick, he told the people, get away from the tents of these wicked men. Don't touch anything that belongs to them. If you do, you will be destroyed for their sins. So all the people stood back from the tents of Korah, Dathan, and Abiram. And then Dathan and Abiram came out and stood at the entrances of their tents, together with their wives and their children and their little ones. And Moses said, this is how you will know that the Lord has sent me to do all these things that I have done. He said, for I have not done them on my own. That is my testimony to you today. All these things that I'm doing, even this very live broadcast. If there's not one viewer that views this broadcast, I want you to know by being obedient to do what I was told, then the information and the solutions will be there. And there will not be one connected with me that can't say they didn't know how to get an answer. With all this information out here on Facebook, on Twitter, all this conversation, all this circulation of information, there needs to be some truth out there. Something absolute people can put to a practical test in their lives and see come true. And for that reason, I will have done my job well. And what is the ambition thereof? Who is paying me to put forth this broadcast? Who's going to give me back the time that's expended? Especially on a holiday weekend. See, I won't be moved because I know who called me. And it's a reasonable, pleasurable opportunity, a gift for me to be able to render him service on your behalf with no expectation. I'm here to help you. What can I do? Log on right now to Supernatural Success Camp TV show on Ustream. Follow, subscribe, interact, chat, send us your questions. There are solutions, and we're going to go to the light, the way, and the truth to get them to you so that you can have success in your relationship wars. Now, let's go back and see what ended up being the outcome of this situation. Moses said, if these men die a natural death, verse 29, or if nothing unusual happens, then the Lord has not sent me. But if the Lord does something entirely new, and the ground opens its mouth, and swallows them and all their belongings, and they go down alive into the grave, then you'll know. These men have shown contempt for the Lord. Verse 31 says that Moses had hardly finished speaking the words when the very ground suddenly split open beneath them. The earth opened its mouth and swallowed the men, along with their households and all their followers. I said not just the men, but their entire households and those who were following them. I have been broadcasting now for several weeks the importance of separating yourself from people who are charging forth in their relationships, convinced that they are right, others are wrong, manipulating whatever wickedness that is driving them to act the way that they do. Disengage from them, disconnect, because you do not want to end up happenstance, or possibly not, connected with them when their consequences and the outcomes, negatively so, poorly so, that their ignorance and their blindness causes them to end up fallen or perhaps destroyed. And we learned last week that, our guest, she shared that, the person that was challenging me isn't here anymore. They're dead. This is a ministry that is to impact your life. I hope you don't have a offended spirit. The word offended in the Greek is scandalon. And you know what that means? That means to feel scandalized. And that, in context, where it's used in the scripture, is where Jesus was asking if people were offended because of the information and the questions that he was asking. He says, now beware of that, because see, to do so means that the enemy, your human spiritual adversary, has laid a trap for you to end up caught in. And then you're not free. That's what bondage is, being caught in a trap. Let's break some bondages today. Let's break them in relationships. Let's win some of these relationship wars. And by winning is when peaceful solutions can be brought about as much as possible. And if you can't achieve peace on your own, at least do what you have to do to keep it. And sometimes that involves invoking the law. Sometimes it takes a lawsuit. Sometimes it takes having someone else with you to assist. Sometimes it takes calling on some of these neo-Roman soldiers, these authorities in the land, invoking God to select who he sends you, because not all of them are right. Lord knows I know, and I can't wait to talk about that, just on some of my personal encounters with the quality or lack of quality authorities that are in the land today, but I respect the position. And so I appeal the outcomes, even their intervention, to the justice of God. Now, again, so we have Moses communicating this information. We have him giving us the account of what ended up happening. And it says that everything they owned went down with them into this ground, into this, what is called a grave, alive. Verse 33 says they went down alive into the grave. So they went down alive into the grave. Along with all their belongings, the earth closed over them, and they all vanished from among the people of Israel. He removed them from the society, from the community. Hello? Are you hearing? All the people around them fled when they heard their screams. They said, the earth shall swallow us too, they cried. And then fire blazed forth from the Lord and burned up 250 men who were offering incense. And the Lord said to Moses, tell Eleazar, son of Aaron the priest, to pull all the incense burners from the fire, for they are holy. Also tell him to scatter the burning coals. Take the incense burners of these men who sinned at the cost of their lives, and hammer the metal into a thin sheet to overlay the altar. And since these burners were used in the Lord's presence, they have now become holy. Let them serve as a warning to the people of Israel. And so Eleazar the priest collected the 250 bronze incense burners that had been used by the men who died in the fire. And he hammered them into a thin sheet to overlay the altar. And this would warn the Israelites that no unauthorized person, no one who was not a descendant of Aaron, should ever enter the Lord's presence to burn incense, because if anyone did, the same thing would happen to him as happened to Korah and his followers. And so the Lord's instructions to Moses were carried out. I love when I hear that anointed, appointed instructions get carried out. But here's the other side. First thing next morning, verse 41 says, the whole community of Israel began to mutter again against Moses and Aaron. They didn't learn. They said, now, you have killed the Lord's people. And as the community gathered to protest against Moses and Aaron, they turned toward the tabernacle and saw that the cloud had covered it. The glorious presence of the Lord appeared. And Moses and Aaron came and stood in the front of the tabernacle, and the Lord said to Moses, get away from all these people so that I can instantly destroy them. But Moses and Aaron fell face down on the ground. And so Moses said to Aaron, quick, take an incense burner and place burning coals on the altar. Lay incense on it and carry it among the people to purify them and make them right with the Lord. The Lord's anger is blazing against them. The plague has already begun. Aaron did as Moses told him and ran out among the people. And the plague had already begun to strike down the people. But Aaron burned the incense and purified the people. He stood between the dead and the living, and the plague stopped. Oh my God. But 14,700 people died in that plague, in addition to those who had died in the affair involving Korah. Then, because the plague had stopped, Aaron returned to Moses at the entrance of the tabernacle. This is part one, I could see, of a follow-up episode. I want to make sure we have a complete understanding of what it means to be in a relationship or a conflict with someone of not just constituted authority, but many times we don't realize that there is a spiritual authority on some of the people we're interacting with. And as long as it depends on us, if we don't recognize or we don't know and we don't discern, let us not fall to a trap. Let us not be offended. Let us take our case to the Lord to work it out and divinely intervene, lest we end up experiencing some unfortunate happenstance, because we are not sovereign. We are not God alone. We don't have any power as human beings to change one thing white or black. Some people believe they do, but I assure you they're appealing to occultism, witchcraft, and manipulations of things, and they're not doing that with a divine, omnipotent, all-powerful energy. Human beings are neutral, and we can be impacted or affected by any spirit that moves upon us. Wouldn't you prefer to have the Spirit of God moving upon you than an other worldly spirit by default? There's only two in the world: holy, pure, and the evil. And at any given time, based on our emotional states, our mental states, where these battles and these wars are truly, truly waged, all the violence outcomes, those things don't happen by rote. They start in the mind. Somebody has lost the battle in the mind. And when they're lost in the mind, they can become weapons of destruction to others, coming to steal, kill, and destroy. They're not agents of peace. I want you to be empowered for supernatural success. And if you can't do anything else, discern, have the truth that helps you know the difference of the type of personalities of people that you're working with. I mean, I get it. Sometimes we have to stand up for oppression. I'm one that I am allergic to oppression, depression, and I can't even fathom possession except by Christ Himself alone, who possesses my soul. I have to guard my heart daily, for the issues of life come forth from it, to ensure that these otherworldly evil spirits don't move upon me to carry out their business. I'd rather carry out the business of the kingdom. Kingdom meaning government, and a government divine on the earth that my breath and my being is presently occupying. I pray that my gifts, my talents, my skill sets, and my energies will bring God glory. And that when I depart from this earth, that the fruit, the good fruit of the things that I've said, made testimony to, the prayers that I've prayed that have allowed God's hand to move in the earth and override natural circumstances, let they testify of the purity of me and bring Him glory forever. I want to close with a commentary from Warren Wiersbe's chapter by chapter Bible commentary. It's a Nelson's Quick Reference book, which kind of sums up what we've just read, and we'll pick it up next time. Number 16 is where the story is. I encourage you to do your own research, study some commentaries,